Ready? Good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to see all of you here. This is such an awesome thing to be here with all of you in this historic place to deal with these issues of food insecurity and hunger. I'm Reverend Joel Huntington, pastor of South Congregational Church in Pittsfield, and these photos that are here are all taken at the church I serve, at our food pantry, and our community meal. We serve about 450 families a week at the food pantry, about 60 to 80 at the meal once a week. And at Thanksgiving, we host with the rest of the community Community Thanksgiving distribution, which is some of these photos, and that serves over 1,400 families. So in a community size of Pittsfield, which is about 43,000, and we're not the only pantry, we're by far the largest, but we're not the only one, there's a lot of poverty. So what do we make of that? Well, Jesus once said, "The poor you will have with you always." And people often just stop there and say, okay, therefore there's nothing we can do, nothing we need to do, just sort of resignation or even justification. The poor will have with us always, forget it. But Jesus knew by heart the rest of the quote. He was quoting from the book of Deuteronomy, the Hebrew Bible, which was his Bible. And the rest of the quote is, "The poor you will have with you always, therefore open your hands to the poor, open your hearts to the poor, open your eyes to the poor." Not just for their sake, but for your own sake, so that we can all be whole. That's what Jesus knew, and that's what he embodied, and that's what we're supposed to embody in our faith, our faith communities. And so the question is, how do we do that? Well, one way it happened was Gretchen DiBertolo was working at a neighboring building in the dentist office, and she never realized what the pantry was all about, but it was even there. She finally decided, out of her own angst about life, to start volunteering at the community meal, and then her eyes were open, and she saw the need. But as she's told me on many occasions, she didn't just see people in need, she found people who, in an indirect way, were extremely helpful to her to healing her own life. So the wholeness is not just one way, it's because we're all poor. And so Gretchen talked to Nicholas DeCandia, who was maybe looking for a project, and Nicholas is the one who took all these photos. So that's where that begins. And then I had a couple of other good stories. But maybe I'll just say bio is how we implement this, how we see. Nicholas took the pictures, Gretchen volunteers, we do this. At our church, we're really good at volunteering and doing the work, but we need helpers, we need allies to communicate farther afield. And bio, Berkshire Interfaith Organizing, has been doing this incredible work of organizing us, making us have contacts with like the Western Mass Food Bank, Senator Ben Downing, with Smitty Pignatelli, with Tricia Farley-Bouvier, with Massachusetts Public Health Association that I just met today. It's just awesome what's happening. And so we probably will have the poor with us always, but the assignment is to address that, to therefore, open your hearts, open your hands, open your eyes. May your eyes be opened by these wonderful photos that show both the pain and the sadness, but also the dignity and the courage and the strength of these people. It's enough for me. I'm going to introduce Paula Mori from Bio, who's got a few more comments.
As a lifelong resident of Berkshire County, and specifically North Adams, I have seen over the years what food insecurity and transportation issues have done to the residents of Berkshire County, and that's why I chose to help out in bio. So specifically, I work on food insecurity, and our first win this past year was a $2 million increase in MEFAP in Massachusetts. We are here today to thank our legislators for supporting this importance of this funding to support the 4 food banks across the Commonwealth. And our next priority is to support the funding for the Massachusetts Food Trust. And thank you, Representative Telly, who just signed on to help us with that. The Food Trust was established in law in 2014, and we believe if it's funded appropriately, it will create opportunities for good jobs, increased access to healthy food, and revitalization of our community. So thank you for your support.
And then our other person we want to focus on is Nicholas DeCandia, a photographer, who has a few words about the photos and about, this is not the first time he's been here doing this. 30 years ago he did this with Will and Rosemary Durant from the Christian Center. So Nick, come say it.
Thanks for coming. I'll try. 30 years ago I was here, and the photos then were about the Christian Center, which is another place in Pittsfield that gave people food and clothing. And now here we are again, 30 years later, and we're back doing the same thing. Except I think the energy now is in a different way. Well, everything changes, and hopefully this change will bring something that's really going to help all the people in need. So I almost see the same people in the first pictures I've done and the pictures I did now. And I just want to say one more thing. Rosemary and Will Durant are in this room with us right now. Thank you.
Nick doesn't toot his own horn, but these photos, you might think they were easy to take, but the woman that's over there with the chef with the can, I was talking to her last night, and when I asked Nick about that photo, and he said, I just, there it was, I took the photo. She said he took 200 photos of her before he got out. It took 2 hours. He just kept walking. So that's the spirit that's in these photos. And really, that's the spirit of bio, and of the food bank, and of the Mass Public Health Center. People are putting a lot of energy into this, and it's going to go places. It is going. I never dreamed it'd come to the State House. So thank you all, and Senator Downey.
Thank you, Reverend. Before I say anything else, we should point out one of the great things when you do an exhibit like this is that the State House, as much as it is this remarkable sort of living museum, it's also where we all come to work. And you'll have people hustling and bustling by in the hallways. And a lot of the times you won't notice what's going on, but sometimes if you're lucky, you've got an extra minute or two, you do. And you might duck your head in and want to poke around a little bit, might see a familiar face. So we've been joined by our state auditor, Suzanne Bumper, resident of the Berkshires here. In this job as a legislator, you realize that on any issue, people are going to connect to it in any number of different ways. There are colleagues of mine who will only connect to an issue if you put a set of facts and numbers in front of them, right? So they are the colleagues who I would sit with and say that 235,000 people in Western Massachusetts face food insecurity at any given point in a single year. They're the people who I would say that 15,000 of our family members, our friends, our neighbors access the Western Mass Food Bank and its partner organizations throughout the 4 western counties. They're the people who we talk to about the fact that we've seen the poverty rate in the Berkshires and throughout Massachusetts, throughout Western Massachusetts, go up over the past few years, even while the economy has recovered, right? They might attach to those numbers and that's all that they need, right? But there are people among us, and maybe these aren't the issues that they've worked on all the time, who connect through images, right? And we've seen that when we have been blessed at the State House with talented photographers like Nick and other artists who have captured images of veterans returning from war and their families, who've captured hopeful images of any number of different things going on in our schools, images of environmental protection and also degradation, all that have graced these halls at one point or another. And really, that's the great thing about this, right, is that you find different ways for people to connect with different issues, and hopefully the faces and the stories that we all see in these images grab one of our colleagues in the State House, grab one of our colleagues in the Senate, so that they'll pick up the phone and call Smitty and say, hey, you know, we saw something when we were down there. How did this all come to be, right? And they'll hear the story of Bio and their work with the Public Health Association, their work with the food bank and others, and they might sign on to that amendment next time just because they saw these pictures. They might get a little bit more involved in their district because they saw these pictures. I have now somehow been doing this job for 9 years, and one of the little bits of wisdom that I might have picked up along the way is that while you can get frustrated that you can't solve everything in one day, and there are plenty of days where you feel like the rock that you have been pushing up the hill has rolled back down over you, what you have to remember is that sometimes it's your job to make that one big rock out of a lot of different little pebbles, and in assembling all those pebbles, that there are plenty of people who can find different things that they can work on in their districts throughout the Commonwealth that help you get another set of hands pushing that rock up the hill to be able to get it done. So I'm here today, partially because you all pay me to come here every day, right? So there's that. But I'm here with you today more than anything else to say thank you. Thank you for the work that you all are doing, the advocacy work that you're doing, the service work that you all are doing. Thank you for the examples you provide in our communities. You know, it's easy to think that these problems are too big and we can't tackle them. But it's important to remember that the work of every individual has ripple effects far greater than anything that we see. That's not an excuse to not continue and keep it up. We need to keep it up, and we know we have a lot more work to do. But I know that I am hopeful because of all the work that you all do. And I know I speak on behalf of our delegation and certainly our partners who've worked on these issues for some time. So thank you all for all you have done, and maybe most importantly, thank you all for all you will do as we work together to come together and celebrate the day where Nick has to come to us and say, what am I going to take pictures of, right? Because we've solved hunger and we've solved poverty. So thank you very much. And Madam Auditor, I don't know if you want to say a few words to join us as well. Thank you.
I'm delighted to be able to join you as you unveil this wonderful exhibit. I look forward to seeing more of it in the days to come while it's here. I want to commend the legislature, particularly Senator Downing, for his leadership in this issue to ensure that those resources are made available by the state to help address the problem of food insecurity. You know, it was about 36 years ago when I was thinking of getting married. And like most people, when you're thinking about your life's partner, you want somebody who's going to share your values. But how do you know if that person really shares your values? They can say one thing and in their heart really not believe it and mean entirely something else. But I knew that my husband was somebody whose values I could believe in, because at the time that I met him, he was working in the soup kitchen at the Paula Center right here on Park Street. And he was on the board of Project Bread, which started the Walk for Hunger. And so for years I joined him doing holiday cooking primarily there, but then also Sunday morning cooking for the elderly in the south end of Boston. So I knew that I had the right man. Well, especially when he came to my house one day and he had actually baked me coffee bread too. So that really sealed the deal. And if he didn't ask me to marry him, I was ready to ask him to marry me. So this is an issue that has long been near and dear to me, and it really is because of my religious education that I understood what Jesus was talking about and the moral imperative that we all have to serve the poor among us. I was looking at I think it was the Globe, the Boston Globe over the weekend, and it was pointing out, as we know, that Massachusetts actually is one of the wealthiest states in the country. On a per capita basis, we have a larger income than most other states in the nation. But when you dig down into that, Senator Downey was talking about the facts and figures that underlie policy initiatives. You see that most of that wealth is concentrated in just a couple of counties here in Massachusetts. And even within those counties, of Suffolk County, of Middlesex County, there is food insecurity. But those counties really skew the figures for Massachusetts, because once you move out of those couple of counties, then you see that not only are the rest of the counties of Massachusetts far below the statewide average, they're also below the national average in terms of family income. And it's those people who don't always like to make themselves known and their needs known because of a sense of shame. So many people are ashamed of the fact that they aren't as wealthy as their neighbors. We need to help people understand the extent of this problem. Art is one way to do it, and I'm so glad that that's the way that you have chosen, particularly in an era that is so focused on visual media and what they can learn through images such as these. This is how we educate and move ourselves forward. So I thank you all very much for being here and for your dedication to trying to solve this problem. Thanks.